Welcome to a marvelous ride into the Rings of Power's Middle-earth, and we're well into week 2 of the series, and all straddled up and ready to catch up on episode 4. There's Elrond-Galadriel's splintered friendship story arc, not Gandalf self-discovery, and he's almost there. Almost Gandalf for you, ladies and gentlemen. The Orcs have begun their descent on Eregion, and there are more ongoing references to the Lord of the Rings films in the middle of some sketchy dialogue. So, the Rings of Power Season 2 dropped last week, but it didn't exactly create a volcanic crater like Almost-Gandalf's landing site from the last season. The Amazon series was very much about Sauron, and, Sauron. The crafty Adar had called open bar with the elves, and the dwarves were invited to get their cocktails too. But episode 4 has shifted from that progression into getting the rest of the cast involved in the game. The production designs remain one of the highlights of the show. The CGI is gorgeous, no doubt about it. It's also a huge clapback to the Peter Jackson films, which are referenced throughout, even though they said they wouldn't do it. In this video, we'll discuss episode 4's hits and misses, and examine its ending to see what we can expect in the story going forward. Real quick, before we get into it, we have a small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing. It's a small click for you, but it means a lot to us. Thank you. Episode 4, a brief look. The episode starts out with another lengthy recap. That's alright, I do tend to forget some tidbits, like the Isildur and his horses arc, and also the Theo and Arondir dynamic, which are sadly the most forgetful duo in the show. Episode 4 starts out with Elrond, who gets his fair share of shine in this installment. Elrond's seen readying his company, which is en route to Eregion. Galadriel seems rather peeved that Elrond is in charge of things, and we're not sure why. Elrond's leading the elves to rescue Celebrimbor from Sauron, mainly because in what is probably the greatest blunder on Middle-earth so far, Galadriel fell for the Dark Lord's charms, and she was so embarrassed by it that she hid Sauron's identity until Gil-galad admonished her like a schoolgirl, and out it came, and we were all like, oh my god, she's a doppelganger, because the real Galadriel would never, ever. Now she's mad that Elrond is the one chosen to lead them to Eregion. The irony. Anyway, Elrond's right back at her with some stinging remarks to have her snap back into her first lieutenant role. We then take flight with some beautiful top shots of Middle-earth, followed by map transition, which leads us to a charred and broken bridge. Camnir, the new guy on the block, gives Elrond and Galadriel some direction. Galadriel and her ring envision an evil among the surrounding hills in the south. Honestly, the dialogue up until this point is more generic than ever, so much so that we're craving some recycled lines from the Peter Jackson films. Moving on, Elrond shoots Galadriel's opinion down and decides to go south, and a looming disaster has been firmly set in the script. Meanwhile, Almost-Gandalf is roaming about in search of Nori and Poppy. He arrives at Tom Bombadil's spot, who's all pink and smiley at his arrival. As usual, Almost-Gandalf's loosey-goosey fingers are not able to hold on to his map of the stars. It flies off, and as he waddles behind it, and it chances upon a branch, and Gandalf is like, ooh, it's the Gandalf stuff I've been looking for all along. Okay, he doesn't say that, but I'm sure he was thinking it. But the tree is a magical trapping creature, and traps Almost-Gandalf within himself. Unbeknownst to Almost-Gandalf, Nori and Poppy are just fine. We see them rolling around further along in the same dusty desert they've been scaling with Gandalf. They stumble into an oddball, Merrimack, and there's a moment between Poppy and him, they just click. Okay, moving on. Merrimack is coaxed into taking them to his village. He's a store, another half-foot-like, and he warns them not to call his village leader the Gund. The village is a sweet little place with sandy alcove homes, very Middle-earthy, but none of them seem to resemble Merrimack though, until the main lady's store, the leader of the lot, walks out, and man, is she rude. She wants to put Poppy and Nori out on their butts, but the girls tell them they're helping a wizard out. And then another clue to Almost-Gandalf being Gandalf is dropped when the leader calls him Grandel. At this point, we're ushered into the Dark Wizard's sandhouse lair. Gaudrim, the leader from the Golden Skull and Bone Masks who had been swept out by Almost-Gandalf before, tell the Dark Wizard that Almost-Gandalf is heading north to Bombadil's. For some reason, the Dark Wizard asks for the whereabouts of the halflings. Now, he seems super consumed with the half-foots alone and asks Gaudrim to put his full focus on them. Gaudrim makes a passionate promise to him that he'll find them. Well, good for him. His job just got a lot easier. The half-foots alone shouldn't be any trouble to catch at all. Right. Anyway, back near Bombadil's, Bombadil asks the mean tree spit Almost-Gandalf out. At Bombadil's home, Almost-Gandalf soaks himself in a warm bath with candles and everything. Now this is called great hospitality. 5 stars to Bombadil for that, but Almost-Gandalf is seemingly hearing things. He hears Bombadil singing with the woman. Anyways, Almost-Gandalf finds out that Bombadil is an ancient wizard, and they bond over that. Almost-Gandalf asks Bombadil to teach him to wield a staff, and this is quite out of nowhere, as nothing so far suggests Bombadil can do that. Bombadil fills Almost-Gandalf in about the Dark Wizard who's after him, as well as Sauron, and tells him that it's his task to stop both of them. Dang, that's a heavy load for someone who doesn't even know his name. Okay, so back to the dark southern woods. I mean, the Barrow Downs are so pitch dark, you'll need to adjust the brightness on your device. Elrond and his company are going through these woods so very cautiously that you get the feeling they can foresee an attack coming, but they don't turn around. No, sir. Then, out of nowhere, Sauron pops up on the screen. What? It's that version of Sauron the Orcs destroyed in the Episode 1 flashback before his Maya soul seeped through the cracks and turned into venom. What's going on? Okay, well, it's not Sauron, just another elf. Looks exactly like him, though. Same actor? Somebody enlighten me in the comments, please. Anyway, they find the dead bodies of the Linden Heralds. All of a sudden, a dispensable member of the cast is hooked and pulled into a cave, and we've got evil voiceovers. It's the Barrow Wights. The skeletal-looking creatures dressed in tattered robes twist up into a raggedy dark giant, and Galadriel says, "Prepare yourselves," as if everybody around her was just, not thinking of doing that already in the face of these gigantic demons. Many Barrow Wights surround the elves, and the elves realize they can't be killed with their weapons. Elrond has a eureka moment and finds some spears that can do the job. They destroy the Barrow Wights with relative ease. A 20-second fight sequence which was sluggish on combat choreo level, but ramped up by the background score. And then we get to Isildur and friends. A Pelargir search party with Isildur and Arondir are out looking for Theo when they find dead bodies of their peers. The next day, they're brainstorming where to go looking. Remember Estrid, the girl Isildur picked up on his way to Pelargir? She says, "Go north." And they're like, north it is. Arondir appears a little suspicious. I mean, Isildur is clearly enamored by her. We all know she was in the show to entice him from her intro scene itself. Arondir exposes her as a wild man takes her with him to try to catch the wild men. Isildur hasn't learned his lesson and continues to chat with her. All of a sudden, Arondir senses something. In his signature super slow dialogue delivery style, he says, "Be still." After a dramatic slow burn, he's worked out where Theo is. Well, we know where he is because they show us. Top shot first. Theo and some wild men are sitting in a tree. Is it an ent? Well, sure looks like it. There's a Nori bit in the middle too. The Lady Store Gundabale and Nori realized the Harfoots and Stores were connected. The Stores were hoping to find the Suzak, a prophesied place for the halflings. Their talk is interrupted as Gaudrim and his cronies get there. They ask Gund about Nori and Poppy, threatening her with a particularly blunt sword. I don't know how he cuts through anything at all with that. Back to Arondir, Isildur and the girl who was scaling a swamp. Isildur gets himself stuck in quicksand. Well, so far, Isildur has accomplished nothing which is becoming of a ruler of Gondor, which he's supposed to become if we go by the book. He's got himself lost in the Southlands, almost dying if it weren't for Beric, getting fooled by a wild woman and bringing her into the men's safe haven, losing his loyal horse Beric again, and now getting stuck in quicksand on a rescue mission. Make him look good soon, please, writers of the show. Anyway, he's being pulled into the bubbling mud. And one more time for the cheap seats, Arondir says, "Be still." But Arondir is pulled into it with Isildur. Then, in a redeeming moment for Estrid, she gives them a hand. But a Middle-earth and toothy anaconda thing pops out of the swamp. Okay, so it wasn't just quicksand. We'll scratch that one off of Isildur's report card. Ultimately, Arondir slays it, and both the men jump out of the muck and have a laugh. And the guys are okay with Estrid now too. But an Ent wife who doesn't like swords comes awake and smacks her away. Pretty hard. Ouch. It's Ent time, guys. More Ents circle them and share their pain with these strangers. They're absolutely livid with the recent Orc menace, but Arondir gains their trust, promising them that he'll protect them. So they begin to chill. They let Theo out, who was with them. Everyone's united and happy. Oh, and Estrid finds her betrothed. Bummer for Isildur. Arondir decides to leave these guys and follow the Orcs. God, finally. Galadriel and Elrond have a heart-to-heart where they express their opposing feelings about the ring she wears. She feels the ring is vital to defeat Sauron, but Elrond is left feeling she's forever possessed by the ring. The Orcs' drums from afar break this convo short. Adar and his Orcs are marching towards Eregion. Elrond, Galadriel and the guys watch them from afar and decide to send word to Gil-galad. Suddenly, some Orc arrows come flying toward the elves and Camnia gets injured. The Orcs catch his scent. So Galadriel gives her ring to Elrond and tells them to be off while she distracts them. She fights the Orcs with some serious spin moves, fire and slow-mo action. As they're about to overpower her, Adar steps in and stops them. Elrond leaves with the rest, remarking that Galadriel's brave act was not to save them, but to save the ring. Marvelous verdict. Episode 4 was an interesting change, pulling the story away from the Enotar-Celebrimbor nucleus. The rift between Galadriel and Elrond took center stage, but didn't quite reach the level of tension it needed. This is because it feels very out of character for Elrond to act so rigid all the time. Go back to the shadow, Galadriel says to an orc, a dyed-in-wool Lord of the Rings reference. And the clapbacks keep mounting. At this point, the Peter Jackson films are quite obviously Rings of Power's biggest inspiration. We got a few new characters expanding the show's overall look. While the Barrow Wights were a blink and miss thing, literally Their only show value was the bendy, twisting trick they do to stand erect. But the Ents and Entwives got a proper intro. The Entwives seem louder and faster with their words than their men. We like that. And finally, we got some action in this episode. The choreo could have been tighter though. The combat's being hyped by a mounting background score more than fight movements. Honestly, come on producers. You can get the cast some proper combat training with $1 billion budget. Well, to Arendir's credit, while he remains the gloomiest talker of all, his fight sequences feel more genuine compared to the rest. Almost-Gandalf isn't Gandalf yet, but I reckon he'll get there by the finale. We've got 2 cliffhangers to end the episode off. Gund being mortally threatened to out Nori, and Adar capturing Galadriel. The one of real consequence will be the Galadriel one. Adar may tell her he wishes to capture Sauron, and maybe they could align forces to do that this one time. Also, Arendir's likely to catch up with either Galadriel or Elrond and join a more exciting set of characters. Good for him. That's all for episode 4 from us. Do tell us your thoughts on this episode, and if you like the video, please smash the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. Until next time then.